Hello, welcome to the CEO Blind Spot and Hiding Cost. It's a pleasure to be here with you today here. And today we're going to have an amazing discussion. I would love for you to put comments as we go along, and I will review these once the presentation is over, and I will respond to you in a video or in a text. But please feel free to express any concerns, questions, anything that you would like to share. So to start with the right foot, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be here and to watch this live event. I'm very excited to guide you through this process. My name is Andrea Cecilia G. Dunn, and I am an executive mindset coach assisting C-leaders to move from burnout to maximize resources and really unpack those hidden spots that they can utilize all that energy that is filling into the cracks to have a restful and really fulfilling life. So with that being said, today we're going to be covering specific topics. We're going to talk specifically about the hidden cost of success when boundaries are missing. So the first topic that we're going to talk about is, and something that we have covered in the past, this is about boundaries and how boundaries become a fuel because they create a container where we can focus. Secondly, we're going to talk about the blind spots and how these blind spots, because they are not intentionally managed by our vision, but more than anything, are, reactive behaviors that they come from untap and noticing beliefs, mindsets, and even addictions to behaviors that we don't even know that we have them. They are the hidden sabotage cause of many of the things that we keep questioning why they're not happening the way we want it. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to rewire our identity so that way we can create the identity that really matches our vision and intention, and then create the tactics that they become sustainable. Because a lot of times we aim to the tactics without realizing that they are generated from an identity that is not in alignment with the vision that we have created for ourselves. So with that being said, as we go along, if you wanna, if you have any specific message or concern that you have, that it, as I'm presenting, is awakening within you, and you wanna treat this in a private manner, feel free to direct message me, and I will be more than glad to set up an appointment and have a conversation and see how we can unpack those blind spots or the necessary boundaries or that new identity, whatever that might be the case. So let's start with the first point. Let's talk about the boundaries and how the boundaries are fuel for us. And most leaders don't lack effort. Most leaders, we are really driven. We really constantly finding what is the next action that we need to take. What is the next thing that we need to learn? And a lot of times, especially at the beginning, but in different stages through the process of our growth as a leaders, we feel lost, and we're looking for answers outside of us, and we start to aim in many directions, and we look like octopus trying to embrace many things at the same time, listening to many things. And this is a great thing because this talks about our curiosity, our intentionality of incorporating new visions, new opportunities, new tools, new tactics. But what is missing is the second step. And the second step is about find out and really taking the time to see how much that is in alignment to the priorities that we need to keep in order to fulfill the plan that we have created for ourselves. And sometimes those things are triggers for us to review the plan and see if the plan is obsolete. Sometimes we have huge bursts of growth that require a revision of the plan. So there are many factors that need to be taken into consideration. But more than anything, what I want to share with you is that, a lot of times we diversify ourselves so much that we cut ourselves thin, and the lack of focus causes to waste a lot of energy. And not that there is not good intention in this, but the need for the laser focus intentionality is really the key to create a sustainable process that allowed us to use our energy in a mindful way, know how to derive, how to find the support that we need in areas that we are willing to send to delegate, and where are the areas where is our expertise, where we shine, where we do not have anybody to replace us. And this requires a lot of internal dialogue. So again, we need to reframe the idea of boundaries, because when we delegate, is part of creating boundaries. I need to get this done, but I cannot do it myself. So who do I know that can do this for me? Who is qualified? Do I need to find someone qualified? What are the things that I feel as a leader, it needs to be fully my responsibility, and which ones are the ones that they are someone that has more expertise? And not only that, we need to be upfront and truthful to ourselves about the things that really inspire us, and what are the things that we procrastinate because we do not like to do. I really invite you to create a list of all the things that you do not like to do, and see if you can get someone else to do them for you. If you can delegate in some way, or if you can reframe it in a new way, so that way they don't feel like a drag. So, coming back to the idea of boundaries, this is the thing. Those boundaries need to come, it requires a sincere and authentic conversation with ourselves, so that way we can have a clear understanding of what is the intention that we want to use those boundaries for. So first of all, we need to be clear about the vision, the intention, and then the definition of who am I when I'm creating those boundaries. And we're going to cover that more in the third point. But right now I want to bring it because it's important that a lot of times we put boundaries from a place of fear, from a place of triggering. And it's important that all these things are consequences that allowed us to notify where something is poking us the wrong way. But also we need to understand that that is showing up. So we take a leap as leaders to understand what is the thing that we need to heal within ourselves and reframe, and really use that as the fuel of growth instead of the dragging consequence of minimizing ourselves. And what I mean, by this, to land it in a more concrete way, is that if something is triggering me, the first tactic is to create safety for myself. So, I need to understand, how am I going to deal with this situation? So if someone has a way to approach me that is irritating to me, I need to voice it out. But when I voice it out, do I do it from a reactive mode, or am I doing it landing in my identity of a leader and requesting what is needed so I can provide and put on the table what is the most valuable contribution that I have for myself? So with this in mind, when we start to talk about boundaries, the boundaries, even though seem to be to create, a specific area that is seen to be so contained, but really what is containing is the space of safetiness. And it really, through that, it gave us the gateway of no limitations in our creativity and the access to the things that we can, we can really collaborate with others, and what are those strengths that they are within ourselves, that they are the most valuable contribution that we have as a leaders to our teams, to our company, or whatever role we have. So one thing that is important is, we need to understand how this lands in our everyday life. And so, as a personal story, I want to share with you that it took me a moment to understand the power of no. And you probably have heard this many times. But one thing that I keep telling myself, when someone brings a proposal and it sounds very exciting, but it has certain aspects that did not fully align with myself, I have learned that I never give an answer on the spot. I really require to have 24 hours for consideration. And this is one of the boundaries I put in place in that conversation. When someone comes and is very excited, but they need an answer right away, I say, I do not work this way, because when you get the best of me is when I have time to sit on it. And if I don't get time to sit on it, then, my answer will not be as solid as I have time to be with it. So this is the first thing. The second thing, during those 24 hours, I get to review every aspect. And if there is anything that is not landing properly with me, even though the project is amazing, I get to put that into context where the other person can receive my messaging with a lot of clarity, because I have the opportunity. I'm very analytical. Not everybody is that way. Some people can go more by the gut feeling, but this is my personal need. So what I have learned is, instead of giving a response right away, which most of the time it was ending in a yes, and then I was upset with myself because I have said yes to a whole a whole package that was not showing everything that I needed. And then I have to renegotiate. And guess what costs? That costs, that rocked the boat the wrong way. That costs, the agreement to not be as solid as I could have been if I have honored these boundaries. So for me, the power no has been very, very intentional, very open. It has opened many opportunities for me, because then when we sit and we talk, I have a clarity and precision in what I need to review, what is clear. And also it has given me the opportunity to feel the project in a ways that I have more clear contribution where and how I can work in with this organization. So the next thing that I want to share with you is the story. It's a story. This was the story about myself, but I want to share also, working with clients. I had the opportunity to work with a leader who was able to cut. It was a nonprofit organization, and this person had meetings back to back with almost no breaks, way too many hours. She had to work overtime, like most of the people who has higher positions, but many hours. It was impacting her personal life as a mom, and as with her husband as well. And she was able to revisit the identity from where she was saying yes to all these meetings. Basically, she felt that she said no, she was not honoring the opportunity of the leadership position that she had. It was her responsibility to say yes to everything, which is absolutely unsustainable. And also for a leader, one of the specific roles of the leader is to discern what is something that is going to take on and what it needs to be divergent in that other direction, redirected, or sent to a different department, or whatever that might be, but put it in the hands of those who can resolve that is in their specific realm, and really leaving the decision making that really allows the whole pyramid system to work smoothly. So when we were able to reframe this, she was able to reduce 30% the amount of meetings, and this has given a lot of room for her to access her creativity, to have a better positioning as far as her well-being. And as a result of that, her meetings were more effective. Things were moving faster, more effectively, more efficiently, and more than anything, because she was able to engage other members. They felt that they were contributing more, and so there was a better sense of teamwork. So with this being said, if in any moment you feel like you're running empty, like you feel that you at the verge of burnout, or you're already in full burnout, let's talk. Send me a direct message, and I'd be more than glad to sit with you and have a 30-minute conversation to give you some direction and unpack what is needed for you for the next step. So as we move along, we come to the second point that I mentioned that we were going to cover today, and that is the blind spots and how they run the show. A lot of times we do not realize how many scripts are running the show. there are many factors. There are the emotional factors of our personal life experience, the things that trigger us, the things that we believe about ourselves, the things that we should be, you know. Also, there are the factors that they come from our life, the expectations that they were projected to us, the family culture. Then is also the society culture. Then, is the historical moment culture. So there are many layers of beliefs and identities that we endorse and identify with, that even though I'm kind of redundant with that, but is something that, who am I in every moment? Every time I speak from an identity that I have created for myself. And I have this false illusion, and this is for everybody. I have this false illusion of this character that I'm fulfilling, when in reality there are many other factors that they are playing a huge role in an underlying messaging that I am constantly in interaction with, either when I'm interacting with others, but also in my conversation with myself. And these are the blind spots. These are the places that in my decision process, in my process of decision making, either for the smallest decision of how am I going to wake up this morning and how am I going to feel 5 minutes after that, to the biggest decision as a leader, they are running the show as well. And it's nothing wrong with them. It's just, that's the way we are wired. We are wired to have an unconscious mind, because it will be impossible to hold all that information at the same time. And also because the psychology of our mind, it requires to have these things rolling, so that way it contains the ego, so we can protect ourselves. So there is something good about them. But when we let them unleash and we carry this identity constantly, so if I have said to myself, I'm going to be strong no matter what, that means that I will be strong no matter what. And when tenderness is required for any reason, or compassion is required, I am grasping the air, because I have become this identity that I'm strong no matter what. And so I have left behind this aspect of my own humanity that is so important for me to bring into the table, because that creates relatedness. So these are the parts that we only discover in conversations, usually with others, when we open the door to be vulnerable and get feedback from others, but also in crisis, in the moments of crisis, what the crisis is happening, because we are having a conflict that is generated from areas that we do not realize about ourselves. And I'm talking about for whoever's involved, so if it's two people, then it's two people not knowing their blind spots. And if it's 10 people, then it's 10 people not knowing their blind spots. So it's very important that we start to understand how these things are running the show and how impactful they are. This is not to be dramatic about it, but really, to start to unpack that there are more factors that we realize, and the more aware we are of them, and the more we are able to manage them, because we cannot control them all the time. We will be triggered. We will have always blind spots. But if we slow down and we create tactics and mechanisms that allow us to be present on how they're showing up and how they're intervening and how they're playing a role in our decision making and our way to relate and the way we communicate and the way that we executing our role as a leaders, then more we gain power, and that power translate in energy, because now we can do things more intentionally, and we don't have to constantly cover up for all the blind spots that they are playing all these roles, constantly cleaning the mess in our internal dialogue and in our relationships with others. So coming back to the point, most people chase tactics before checking their beliefs. So let's put things in order. We do not start from the outside in, we start from the inside out. So if I'm not clear where I'm positioning myself and from what place I'm speaking, then the kind of impact that I'm going to create, it will not match my intention. And this is going to create a struggle because then I have to close the gap, which it requires more work. But if I show up in a way where these things align, then the impact most likely will diminish the gap, and then it will require less energy to create what I'm intending to do. So, and the aspect of a personal story when it comes to, the context of what I'm sharing with you, I had a past belief of, the rest, it was a weakness, and I have become, I gotta tell you, I became a meditation trainer when I start to understand that the power, as I mentioned in previous conversations, is between thought and thought. I always give too much power to my mind, thinking that everything began and ended with my mind. But there are many other aspects in the processing of the mind that it doesn't have to be the constantly logical, tactical approach of the mind. Is when you give it a rest that you really activate your creativity. And when I understood this, I was able to reframe the idea of resting as a weakness, and I reframe it to become my savings account. Because if I had any project that required my sharpest aspects, I will meditate a lot. I will give myself playfulness. I will do things for fun that will really help me to activate all those areas in the frontal cortex that they are only accessible when I have created safety and when I have created spaces of joy. And then, I was able then in a very short, and I still do, very short time to be able to come with a brilliant solution in extremely short time and with the sharpness that otherwise, if I will iterate over and over and over with the same approach, I probably will get something that will sound very logically juicy, but it will not have that spark of creativity that I only access when I give myself the proper rest and the proper self-care. So what this had created for me is to release the sense of guilt when I was doing, these type of activities, and really see it as an investment. So when it comes to, a client, yeah, this was the aspect of my personal experience. But when it comes to a client, one of the things that we had with one person that it was working on in a high position in a corporation, it was that this person it was constantly feeling like she needed to be needed. And this was the underlying identity that really was sabotaging everything. Because this need to be needed, it was costing her communication, the effectiveness of delegating, and also the focus of her specific role and mission. And when we were able to uncover this, and we were able to see the impact that these blind spots were having and running her performance, we were able to help her to realign with her intention as a leader, and magic started to happen. Because really it was a turnover from the whole top to the bottom. She was able to revert the culture of a whole department, as well the results as a consequence of that, the result of the whole apartment. And really were, they got a top prize and results that they were able to create as a consequence of the change in the leadership. So again, as we continue unpacking all this, if you find that boundaries in the combination with identifying the blind spots and how they go hand in hand are something that you would like to unpack, I really invite you to send me a direct message so we can have a conversation and really find where are the areas where you need to bring light, so that way you can claim that energy and really create a shift in your implementations as a leader, as the leader that you are. So now we come to the third point. And the third point is about, how identity drives performance. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is, as I mentioned before, the tactics do not work without an identity alignment. We can collect, and we take many courses on marketing and leadership, and we take a lot of notes, and we just say, yes, I'm going to do this. And sometimes we create that shift. But sometimes we create that shift and eventually also fades away. And what it fades away? Because it didn't have the proper identity to be able to land and grow the roots needed, so that way it becomes sustainable. So with that in mind, we can say that as we create this new identity, we start to revert the experience of burnout. Because one of the things that I wanted to share with you, a lot of times we think that burnout is a consequence of working too much. And don't take me wrong, that is part true. But more than anything, the burnout comes as a consequence of internal dialogues and conflicts, that they are constantly in resistance between what I think I'm doing and what I really am doing, what I believe to be, and how am I really showing up. And this, it has to do with my identity. As I mentioned before, a lot of times we label ourselves to believe to be in a certain way, and the truth is we not have one role, we don't have one identity, we have many identities. So that's why it's so important that we understand that, for example, if I'm going to have a difficult conversation with someone, I need to identify with this person with empathy, with compassion, yet with firm grounded leadership. And so how that shows up for me, how can I find that within myself? Well, I need to find clarity first in my personal values. I need to identify what my values are, so that way I can ground myself in them, and also understand how am I going to transpire these values in a way that it supports the person to understand the culture that we are creating in the company and the team, so that way they feel contained, but also with the firm of calling back to whatever agreements we have made previously. But I also understand the human component, to have that compassion where I can relate to the difficulties that the other person has. If in the midst of all this, I have internal dialogues, then when someone says or do something, I get triggered, and I let that trigger run the show, it's going to be very difficult to keep myself grounded in those principles that I mentioned before. So it's very important that we are clear in which is the identity that I'm living in. Who am the I that I want to be? Because a lot of times we trying to be someone that they told us that we should be when we were kids. We are trying to be the person that we think we should be, and not the one that we really are. And authenticity requires a lot of courage. It requires a lot of truthful conversation and a lot of awareness of oneself. And this is something that, I invite you to talk to the people around you, and engaging in conversations to get feedback and allow yourself to be vulnerable. It's very important. The most impactful leaders, they had conversations with people at every level of the company, because that gave them the holistic view that allowed them to keep the whole boat in the direction of the mission or not. So, we need to really focus and understand what that identity is, and be clear in the way we're showing up, especially in our role as a leader. So who do you think you need to be to succeed? This is just, what is that character that will be able to take the leap, who will be able to stretch to the point of that vision that you want to manifest in your life? What is that bridge that you need to close? For me, I can tell you also, I'm talking to a camera right now. I didn't think I was going to be doing this. I am doing it, because I know that I'm willing to do what it takes to get where I want to go. And I'm fully committed with that. And I'm willing to face whatever fear, whatever insecurity in order to make it happen, because I'm fully committed to my mission and my vision. Because I know what I can put on the table and I know how I can really help people. So if this is the way to go, here I am. So, you know, in the aspect of a personal story, and it kind of gave you some context on that. Uh, One of the biggest shifts that I have done is I was a constantly doer. They used to call me the Energizer Rabbit, you know, the hamster wheel, because I will be always on the run. And I thought that that was the way to go. But as I became older, and many failures, many challenges, many burnouts, has allowed me to realize that doing more is not the answer. But the answer is, what is the vision? It's like a process. The vision, the identity, the action with clarity, and the impact. And then all over again. And then all over again. And in between, assessing what needs to change, starting from within. And then as far as the resources needed, and the guidance and the support, so that way the next round, it shows up at a higher level. And constantly asking who I have to become in order to get where I want to go, and what requires from me. And if I do not know, then I consult. And that way I can get the answers that I'm searching for. So, just almost, getting towards the end of this conversation, another client story is, that this person had a really issue with micromanagement, and it didn't know how to delegate. It was on top of everybody's, getting on everybody's nerves. And this person, it was a very talented leader, yet didn't know how to delegate. And we were able to tap to the underlying cause of this micromanagement, which it had to do with an addiction to perfectionism, and the feeling that if everything it was not perfect, the war, it will fall apart. And we were able to reframe this and really get into the flow of the natural process of ups and downs, of gains and loss, and reframing those challenges as a moments of growth, of learning. Little by little, this micromanagement start to fade away, and this person was able to create an amazing team that today they still thanking me for the results that they were able to create. So with all this being said, I want to come across with a clear message about the coaching isn't about teaching a strategy. Is about unpacking what is running the background. All these things that we do not know have amazing gift and power behind them when we are able to put our awareness and utilize them as fuel. And the first thing that we need to do in order to get access to this is create a sanctuary. And that sanctuary is a safe space where we can really have those intimate conversations to identify what they are, either with ourselves or with someone supporting us, to reflect back those points that we cannot see about ourselves, that they are kind of invisible. And then finally, rewrite the identity, the internal script. Who am I in the moment, and who I want to become in order to get where I want to go. Once we have done all these different actions, then we can start to create the customized strategies and tactics that they will be necessary to go from point A and B, because we have cleared the way. We can create that blueprint and that recipe in a way that will allow you to consistently iterate the actions that they are needed to go to where you want to go, with the capacity to recycle all the energy that it used to fill into the cracks, to regain it and reutilize it for the purpose that you have created as a leader. So now, coming to the conclusion, I wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today with you to listen to this presentation. And again, check what boundaries you need. Have a conversation, uh, and you will be surprised how much stronger you start to feel, how much confidence you start to build in. And really reach out to me either through the comments. I would love to hear how this presentation have landed for you and what takeaways have you getting from this conversation. But also, if it's something that you want to have in more personal conversation, direct message me, and I would love to set up a time to speak with you. So with that being said, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to next presentation in about a couple of weeks, and looking forward to hear from all of you. Have a lovely afternoon and take care.